Welcome to heCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. As always, I am Mike Chisholm. As always, I am excited to have conversations around the world of men's mental wellness and all of the things that encompass. Every guy's got a story, and those stories, they leave clues, and sometimes they're hard clues, but clues nonetheless. And that's why heCast exists. That's why He Changed It exists. Today's guest is a guy by the name of Mark Steven Porro. Now, Mark is he was an actor, and he still is an actor. He's just not a practicing actor. Was in Hollywood for a long time, a writer, screenwriter as well. And he went through, it's cool. We did talk a little bit about the fact that he got to go chase his dreams and things like that. That was great. But there was an epic event that happened in his life where he had to go and become a caregiver for his mother for the last few years of her life. And his life became a full stop from what he was doing and moving into a new phase, and a beautiful phase. And not only did he do that for his mom, I think a lot of us know people who end up becoming caregivers. It could be for kids, it could be for spouses, it could be for parents, as it was in this case here. He also wrote a book about it, and I'm just so grateful that this book is out in the world. It's called A Cup of Tea on the Commode, and it's the story of when he became a caregiver for his mom and helping usher her into that final phase of life. And boy, is it nice to hear him talk about this and the benefits that came from it. And we all have a gear inside of us that we don't necessarily know that we have. But for the guys that are out there that are listening to this or watching this right now, and you might have a caregiver role that's being thrust upon you at some point, or you have been, this is a really cool episode. Mark is so articulate, and the way that he's able to talk about not just the book itself, but this story, what he went through, it's very inspiring. I just appreciate him so much. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Mark Steven Porro. Okay, Mark, before we get into anything here, I want to ask the question, on all of your for lack of a better term, branding, the way that you get your name out there, it's Mark Steven Porro. Is that because of like a writer's guild or an actor's guild kind of thing? Is that why you have the three names, or is it something that you've just kind of always done?
Well, when I was in Hollywood, it was Mark S. Porro. I thought that had a nice ring to it.
For sure.
Until I met a potential manager, said, "Get rid of the S, Mark Porro. It's strong." And we had a big battle over this S. Anyway, when I was decided to write the book, I thought it just sounded more literary.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay,
Mark
and it
Steven
does.
Porro.
It does. It has a great ring to it. And I just thought, okay, that's it's cool to do that. And I appreciate that. I appreciate a little bit of, it's not even theatric. It's just care of how things sound and whatnot. And it does have a really nice ring to it.
Yeah.
And I was wondering about that, if you used that back in the day. We're going to get to your career in entertainment and all the adventures that you've had. But really at the end of the day, I cannot tell you how touched I was by your story. And there's a lot of guys out there who listen to this, or people who know people who have become caregivers. It could be to a child, it could be to a spouse, and of course, as Gen X rises up in the age, I'm one of the younger Gen Xers, and I'm 50. So as we raise up those baby boomer parents of ours, we become caregivers to our parents as well. And not only did you do that, because a lot of people do that and they do it silently, but these things leave clues, and the clues that you were able to pick up along the way, you were then able to take that beautiful alchemy of gifts that you have, being an entertainer, an actor, a writer, humorist, all of these things, and you were able to look at some of these, put them together, and come up with a book that specifically every caregiver out there should read. I don't like to shit on anybody, but boy, oh boy, did you ever create a textbook and a manual for people who became caregiver, who unwittingly sometimes become caregivers. What a thing you've left in the world. We're about a year after it's been released. How long has the book been out now?
Actually, we're approaching 3 years. It was
Oh, it's 3 years.
released.
I'm sorry.
It was released on Mother's Day, 2023. So,
Okay.
but
So
it
we've
seems
got
like
some
just
reflection.
yesterday.
Well, I was going to ask because now we've got some distance between. I thought it was just over a year. It's 3 years. Okay. Now that we've got some distance between the release of the book and where we are now, I'm curious, how has your perspective changed? We're going to get into the book and what it's all about and everything, but I'm super curious on this end of it. How has your perspective changed since the book has been released?
Well, I'll give you one of the first I think revelations that I came up with. So when the book came out, I couldn't do the audio book. I wanted to record the audio book here. I live in the south of France now, but I wanted to record the audio book. But anything to do with my family, I get really emotional. I'm really, I guess, a crybaby. I have no problem with that. And so I needed some, not only, I guess, physical distance, but I needed some emotional distance from it. Because even when I tried to read non-emotional chapters, I would just, wait, this is about baseball. Why am I crying? So I said, all my, my 28 years of studying acting have to kick in here. And so, but during that time, so it was about 6 months before I recorded the audiobook, and I had time to look at the book with fresh eyes. And it was interesting. So the story sounds like, and it's kind of true, that I went back to rescue my mother.
Yep.
And that's how I think most people will look at it. And then upon reflection, I think that my mother actually rescued me. And that popped in because, again, she's still, I think, even with all the years that now she's been gone, she's still mom and still teaching.
Yeah.
And I think through my story, I'm hoping that her teaching keeps expanding, which it has. And so we were brought up in a really nurturing home. Both of my parents were very funny people, but they taught us how to care for others and care for certainly the family members and stuff too. So for me, this is not a big deal. It seemed like the right thing to do. My mom deserved better at this time, and we'll get into how that all began. And so I felt that I was the one who could give those, make her life better and give her last years some happiness and some joy and stuff that was missing a little bit before. And luckily, I was smart enough when this opportunity came, and I think, again, it was my mom's teaching, I was smart enough to take it on. And it made me certainly a better man, and it made me more empathetic for, it's not just older people, but people in general, but also animals. My mother was a big animal person, and I grew up with every kind of furry animal you could, but I also had asthma. And I guess I took enough drugs so I could handle that. But once I went away to college, all that kind of disappeared. And I was allergic to my home from that point forward, because at that point we didn't have any more cats, but we still had a couple dogs. And I had to live in the basement with the window open in the winter when I was there on college breaks. And so I was not a dog person. Now I'm a huge dog person because my girlfriend had a dog, and luckily I wasn't allergic to her dog at the time. That certainly helped the relationship. And since then, we've rescued 2 more dogs, and they're great. So, and my mom was a big animal lover. And so I think, again, that's mom continually teaching.
He changed. He changed it. Is all about these things that we get, these lessons that we get taught, these things that we learn along the path. And I'm fascinated. We're going to go into the book here, but really at the end of the day, there's different seasons for different parts of our lives, and there's a lot of guys out there, middle-aged people, who have never gone out and chased their dreams. They don't even know what their dreams are, and they're just connected the dots. We talk about this all the time on the show, and but you weren't that guy. You were the guy that was afforded the ability earlier on in life to go and chase your dreams. Was that something that your parents always supported?
I would have to say yes. Verbally, they may have said, or once I went to college, I got a Bachelor of Science in Industrial Design, had a very successful design career going, and I gave it up to go to Hollywood to try that very secure career in acting. And neither one of my parents ever said anything like, "What are you doing?" My dad's thing would have been, "You dumb bag rat, what are you doing?" And never. And when they would come up and visit me in L.A., I think my mom got a kick out of it because I have a chapter in a book called The Champion of Arts. And she always wanted to get us into some creative career. All of us were in the ballet at some point, except for I think one older brother. And I kind of fell into that. My mom was a big fan of the ballet, and we lived about 20 minutes from Manhattan. Yep. So she would take us in, we'd go to Radio City Music Hall, we would go to Broadway plays, and we would see the ballet and things like that. And then my older brother and older sister were like little stars in Northern Jersey. We all studied with Irene Fokin, was a very reputable Russian ballet teacher, very strict. And so they were starring actually with the Royal Danish Ballet in Lincoln Center when I was about 7. And I went to visit, see the show, and I went backstage to visit before they went on. And it was one of those Hollywood stories. Some guy comes crashing through the door and says, "Hey, we need another little kid." And he locks eyes with me and he says, "You, kid, want to be in the show?" And I'm like, "What?" And then he says, "And we'll pay you." And I went, "Oh, now we're talking." So my first job, I'm a professional dancer now. I got thrown right into a wardrobe. I got a great costume. I looked like a little Errol Flynn with the sachet, and it was fabulous. I got a better costume than my brother, and he was not happy about it. But we got paid $5 a show, and we're in Lincoln Center. So that was my debut at 7. And I said, "This is cool." And then I started taking dance lessons, and then we performed in the Nutcracker. Irene Fokin had a very popular production of that in Northern Jersey, where she got a lot of the leads from New York City. So we had top-notch dancers. And I was a kid, and I played a bunch of roles. And then we traveled around New Jersey doing recitals and things like that. But I retired, I think, around 10 or 11 from that. I did not get along with Irene Fokin. She was a tough Russian, and I was a very independent, stubborn kid. And so I retired at, let's say, 11 from the ballet. And that was it for the creative stuff until I got into working after design. I always did some funny stuff because my family, we had funny things. So I wrote funny songs, and we did some fun performances of goofy stuff. But when I was working at a design firm, one of our receptionists was a model, and she said, "Hey, you should start doing this." And so I looked into it, and I started doing the print and then some commercials, because the commercials I was getting, because they said you can act. And I said, "Oh, that's interesting." And
there's a gateway.
Yeah. And then in 84, I decided to bite the bullet and drove across country. And I moved to Hollywood. So I've pretty much, I think, chased every dream. So that was a big one, and it was great because I wanted to be a good actor. So I had a connection with an agent from my work in Ohio, and so she said, "Start, acting classes right away." So I was in acting classes when I first got there, and pretty much until I left in 2012, and it was great. And so I said, I want to be a good actor. And my goal at that point was to get on like Hill Street Blues. That was one of the top shows.
You wanted a series? Yeah.
And in less than 2 years, I got on Hill Street Blues.
Wow.
So that was the start. And so I said, that's just
Stephen
cool.
Bochco, like the top of the top of the top. Like that, at the time, for those who don't know Hill Street Blues, like that was probably the number one from a popularity standpoint drama on TV at that time.
Yeah. And that redefined definitely police shows and television overall. So, but this is how Hollywood works. So I get Hill Street Blue. I didn't work again for 7 months.
Yep. That's
So
just it.
that's
That's exactly it. The feast and
the
famine of the whole
yeah,
thing, right? But
yeah.
you're
But luck,
chasing the dream, and
yeah,
looking back on that, like I'm feeling your energy even as you're talking about it. There's a lot of guys out there who haven't even dipped their toe in their dream, and looking back, it feels like you drove. It's that classic story. You drove across the country to go and see if you could make it there and see if you could make any headway there whatsoever. You were there all the way till 2012. What a ride.
yeah.
And I mean, I don't sense regret there at all for going out and at least trying to see what you could do, because it feels like you went pretty far down the road compared to what could have happened.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
all of it was good. In fact, you get a little spoiled. So that first, I'm on Hill Street Blues, and what's lovely when you were a union actor, if it goes into overtime, the money just it multiplies. So we
Yep.
were into like double golden time, and I'm playing the assistant DA. So I'm in the courtroom, and it was maybe 11 hours in, and I noticed in the gallery there was a man, must have been in his 80s, and he's there that whole time as an extra, and he's having
Mhm.
the best time in the world. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I sat with him during one of our breaks, and I'm kind of hinting like, don't you have something better to do with the years you have left? And he says, no, I just love being around you young creative people. It gives me energy. It feeds me. And he says, and my daughter owns the studio, so I like hanging out here. And I said, who's your daughter? He says, Mary Tyler Moore.
Wow.
So it was MTM Studios at the time. And they had St. Elsewhere was there, Hill Street Blues. Later on, Seinfeld was filmed there,
Hmm.
which I was on actually with my dad. And it was just a great start. But to see this man just having so much fun hanging out at his daughter's studio, it was lovely. So that was like, this is very, very cool. So that was yeah. And I had a lot of moments like that. I think because of you go in with a good attitude.
Yep.
There's a lot of rejection, of course,
Yep.
but you got to say, yeah, I'm going to roll with it, or I guess you depend on your thick skin and stuff like that. And I grew up with
Yep.
two very, let's say, torturing brothers, so I learned about a thick skin very early on in life. So it was like, that's all you got? Nothing, nothing compared to my brothers.
So this is a great contrast, because I want to now move forward a lot of time to the place where you had to make the decision with mom, and you saw that there was a time that was necessary, that you were going to have to come in and be the guy as she descended into her golden years, and through that the challenges that can come with that. I want to talk about that part of the story now. How old were you, and what was the realization moment when that happened, that it was you were going to be the guy?
Well, I was 55, and at the
Yep.
time, my acting career was kind of petering out because I didn't
Yep.
have a major name or a great agent or anything like that. Still had
Yep.
work once in a while, but I was running a snack food business that my brother and I started to honor my father. And he invented this half pop popcorn snack. He called Nutrinuts. We eventually changed it to Grandpa Poe's Originals. And we built it into a national brand.
Wow.
And it was great because it was just a family secret. My father didn't have any luck getting it to the market. And I told him that I'm going to get it to the market. And unfortunately, we got on the store shelves a year after he passed. But
Hmm.
I'm sure he's enjoying it. Anyway, that was
I was gonna
pretty
say,
much,
like energetically, it's that
yeah,
beautiful, beautiful triumph that keeps him alive.
yeah.
And whether or not, we don't know what happens on the other side, but the idea of the tribute that's still happening after he's gone, that right there is a beautiful, beautiful sentiment. And then if there's anything else, that's cake. So what a
Yeah.
beautiful story that is. And
And
that's
it
going to be
was
the next book, right? How you honor dad.
well,
You talked about that.
there is a chapter in there. Yep. That is the book that I'm almost done with now, which is focusing more on dad. But there is a chapter about this in this book also, in A
Okay.
Cup of Tea in the Commode. And
Okay.
so that was pretty much 24/7. And also that prepared me for mom because I was multitasking every day. I did everything for that company, from the website and the social media and all the marketing to the demos to cooking everything. I designed the
Hmm.
equipment. So it set me up very well for mom. And So I'm doing that, and still never married, had no children. So I
Yep.
say I was having the carefree bachelor life. And I get a call from my brother. My mother was still living in the house that we grew up in
Yep.
Ridgewood, New Jersey. And he said,
Yep.
Mom's on her deathbed. The doctor cut off all meds and food and called hospice. And so come home. So she had 6 children. So we all came back thinking, we're going back to say goodbye.
Yep.
And I think it was about 9 days after her 89th birthday, and she was still physically fine. We had a family living in upstairs in our house that were overseeing household duties, doing the cooking and the shopping
Yep.
and stuff because she could no longer drive, but also to keep her company. And
Yep.
we found out that they did not get along very well, so they left my mother alone a lot. So
Oh
my mother
God.
did suffer from some depression throughout her life, but she hid it very well from us. But as the years go on, the filters seem to fade. And so she
Yeah.
became sometimes grumpy and depressed. And I think at this point she was not happy. And I think she just said, if this is going to be the end of my life, I'm going to end it now because this is not cool. And
Wow.
so she was non-responsive. I called it a semi-comatose state, and a hospice was there when I arrived.
Yep.
And didn't open her eyes. Maybe once in a while opened her eyes, but didn't talk. She responded a little bit to touch, but she looked like she was ready to go. And we had the priest come in, deliver the last rites. And so my younger sister and I hung out with hospice because we wanted to care for our mother as much as possible for
Yep.
as long as she wanted to be here. We didn't know if it's going to
Yep.
be hours, days, or what. So hospice
Yep.
was great. They were very generous. They taught us the little tips and tricks. We had to deal with bed sores at the time,
Yep.
how to change the diaper and sponge bathe her correctly, and how to
Yep.
change the bedding with a helpless patient in bed. A little tricky, but it was good to know how to do that
I'm gonna
without.
I'm gonna
Okay,
stop you there because right now there are people listening to this and they're like, whoa, they're getting squeamish. They're getting to this place. And I mean, having a little bit of experience with this, just talk about the idea of, because you're on the other side of it right now and it's old hat and you're able to talk about it. There's a gear inside of us that does kind of open up and give us the ability. There's a lot of people thinking about this going, I could never do that. And I just would like you to talk to that point just for a moment, because at some point there's a good chance many, if not most of us, are going to have to do that in some way, shape, or form. And I want you
right.
to talk about how it became old hat from when it was something that perhaps was not so much.
Right. Well, for a son, I think especially it was a little awkward in
Yep.
the beginning because you're seeing your mother naked for the first time. At least
Yep.
I was. And she's at
Yep.
that point 89. You see what the years have done to her. And they're not kind, nor is gravity. And but I think that's where my acting training came in because I said I'm taking on this role of caregiver, so I've got to become the caregiver, and
Uh,
not I'm still the son, but I'm burying that part, and I'm becoming, whether it's method acting or not, I'm the caregiver because I didn't want. My mother was not really awake at that point, but I didn't want her to feel uncomfortable. I didn't want her to feel like she was a burden or
mm-hmm,
that she was putting us in an awkward position in
mm-hmm,
any way. So if there was if I was uncomfortable at any time, I had to bury it, and I think that's where the acting came in, or you leave the
mm-hmm,
room. And one of the pieces of advice I would give people is if they are uncomfortable with any of this, you don't want to put that on your loved one. Don't do it. You don't need to do it. You can find a pro to do it or someone who is comfortable with the changing the bedding, wiping the butt on the commode,
yep,
and changing all that stuff. If you are there and you're present and you show them that you care and you want them to stick around, that's enough. I mean, some of the
yeah,
best moments I had with my mother was sitting at the kitchen table, just holding hands, and not a word was spoken. But boy, there was such a lovely connection going between our hands. And those were the lovely moments. I mean, you got to get through the normal daily chores. And I
mm-hmm,
tried to make them as fun as possible and certainly pleasant. And I took a lot of tender, loving care in it and stuff. But there's some moments where it's like, oh, and I, in the book, I lay it all out. People say, "Boy, it's raw and honest, and it If you're a bit squeamish, you may have a little issue with some of the chapters, but I wanted to write an honest book about what you're confronted. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah, but people who are in the situation, that's what they want to hear. They don't want to hear people beating around the bush when it comes to that, right? No pun.
like,
I don't know if there's a pun there or not, but they don't want to hear that.
it
They don't
could
want to
be.
hear that at all, because at the end of the day, when you're in that situation or entering that situation, you need to know the info and the idea. Like, I mean, you're showing right here, you have that, and you're a humorous writer, but you're showing it here. You got personality, and you're throwing it out there with a little bit of panache, right? So, but at the same time, you are also not sugarcoating what some of the hard
Right.
stuff is, and that's what we need to hear. We need to hear that, and here you are on the other side of it. You're able to talk about it. It wasn't, you're able to get through it. A lot of people, the fear is worse than the reality, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, and that is very, very clear in your message.
Yeah. Also, what helps is I have this motto, and I tell people, some people have say it's corny, but my motto, it's helped me throughout life, especially with all of my adventures I've been into, and it's find the joy. And I focus on the positive aspect of any of this stuff. And so this was, I'm going in, and when I actually asked my mother for permission at one point, because I didn't move back right away. I stayed with her several weeks, and then I went back to LA to take care of some business. And then I came back a few months later and took care of her for 2 more weeks. And that's the time where I said, I really think I got to step in and do this. And I asked her for permission. And I said, there's 2 things. First, we're going to have fun, because that's the way I roll. I wanted to make it as fun as possible and make her laugh at least once a day. And she said, great. And I said, so if I do this, I will now be in charge. And she was like, And I said, that means you must now obey me. So the full role reversal.
Yeah, I'm the leader. I'm the leader.
Her smile completely disappeared, but she did pucker up for a kiss, and I wasn't sure if that was a sign of surrender or one wishing me luck, because she could be a tough cookie. So I just gave her a kiss and hoped for the best, and it was fun. But again, if you go in, I think, with that mindset of how can I. Also, I put the focus on her. So how can I make her each day more special? How can I make her laugh? How can I cook a meal that she hasn't had for a while, or make her smile, or do something? And so I kept coming up with those kind of things and not dwelling on, boy, this is emotionally taxing and this is physically exhausting and all that business. And it really helped. And also, I grew up with 2 nutty parents, and sense of humor was a big deal with my siblings and my folks, especially in difficult situations. And so whether it's maybe dark sense of humor or not, but we had moments where Mom certainly made me laugh quite a bit too. And so that helps.
Yeah. I love hearing that. I want to connect the dot real quick here. Was it the community? Was it the fact that her family was back around her that allowed her to kind of rise back up again and then come back from the brink of where she was at? Was it basically you guys that caused that?
I believe, yes. I have a chapter in the book called "A Silent Scream," and I think it was a cry for help. She wanted love back in her life, and certainly back in her house. And I think with all of her kids there, and being around, and certainly a few of us caring for her, actually physically caring for her, she sensed that was back. And I think she said, okay, we'll give it another try. And
that's fantastic.
Yeah. So it was, it was about 3 weeks in. It's interesting. So hospice, we found out that hospice, they had this directive.
Yep.
And, but each of the hospice nurses came in, because we had a caravan of these nurses, and they were great, but some of them prescribed their own medicine. And so we had to make sure they read the directive: no food, no medicine, no even drinking. We would just moisten her lips occasionally. And she had no desire. She showed no indication of wanting anything other than just to sleep. And this one nurse came in and she read the directive and she goes, okay. And she went right into my mother's room and leaned over and said, Mrs. Porro, are you hungry? And my mother, this is 3 weeks in, my mother's eyes snapped open like a dinner bell went off. And I'm like, what is that? And then the lady looks at us and accuses us of trying to starve our mother to death.
Wow.
So my sister and I were there at the time. We almost jumped over the bed to strangle her and said, no, we're not. Please go and call your supervisor. So the supervisor sent her away because she broke the rules. But now I'm thinking maybe the original assessment was wrong. And we are, in fact. So I went in feeling really guilty and said, Mom, are you hungry? And she says, what do you got? And those were her first words in weeks. And I'm like, anything you want. And it's March. And she says, how about some pumpkin pie? Well, it's not pumpkin pie season. So I left the room. My brother, who lived locally, was in the living room. And I said, please see if you can find a miracle and find some pumpkin pies. He came back in less than an hour with 2 fresh pumpkin pies. Wow. I don't know where he found them. I don't know if he baked them himself, but the pumpkin pies woke her up. Again, the first food in weeks. She spit out the first spoonful, but the second spoonful went down. She ended up eating half the first pie that day. Finished it the next day, and then I think ate the full pie the next day. But her color was back. She was awake and alert, and she knew what was going on, and it was fabulous. So that one nurse, I call her the rebel nurse, actually was I think a guardian angel. So it was pretty amazing. And so she ate, and she may have been on the most continuous sugar high, because for weeks it was the pumpkin pies. Then it went to sugary oatmeal, and she had about 8 bowls of oatmeal.
Wow.
A day. Before that, it was bowls of sherbet. And it was like New Jersey was running out of sherbet. And again, super, super high sugar content. And then the oatmeal was a lot of sugar in it as well. But we said, hey, listen, she's doing great. You got anything you want? At this point, she's 89 going into her 90th year. And
yep.
Eat it, and it was great. And then we started sneaking in some real food, and then it worked out pretty well after that.
The sustenance, that is a phenomenal part of the story, and it just shows again what will, and desire and drive can do when you have some sort of a purpose, whatever that purpose is. For her, eating the pumpkin pie and then coming back to it. Again, shout out to that nurse. I mean, you talk about, somebody who's really in the healthcare profession. That was somebody who cared. And what a part of the story that was. So, okay, you this goes on. She starts to get her life back in her, and you realize, okay, well, you're going to be the guy. You make the decision. You tell her, and she goes with it in her whatever way that she does. Was there any times as this began? Now, obviously, there's a learning curve. Your purpose is learning what the new normal is going to be, all that sort of stuff. But then at a certain point, I imagine it becomes a routine, and the newness and the things, the challenge kind of go away a little bit. Were there times where you were feeling, I don't want to say resentful, but resentful or bored or anything like, were there times during those times where, the magic of being there for your mom and these moments that you talk about, the beautiful things, there had to have been some lows as well?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I don't know if there was any boredom, because it's again, it's a 24/7 job.
Right.
And even when there were a number of times where I'm up laying in bed, and she's sleeping and safely in her hospital bed, so she can't get out of bed or anything like that. But you're still worried if she's going to be breathing when you get up in the morning. And there were a number of times where she almost gave me heart attacks, where she'd be calling out my name very early in the morning. And I'd go flying down the stairs, not knowing if it's emergency or not, and sliding into her room, and she'd say, "Oh, you are here." And I'm like, "Of course I'm here. Where else am I going to be? It's 6 a.m. And she's like, "Oh, just checking." And I said, "Can you check a couple hours later next time? I just got to bed." But you get, again, I was glad she was awake. And so that was lovely. While she was there while I was there, she slept a lot
Yeah.
because she was like a baby. And so I had some skills in doing this. So I ended up renovating her entire house while I was there.
Oh, there you go.
And that was lovely because I kept her engaged to show her, what we're doing. And but it was pretty funny. She did suffer from a little bit of dementia. So after we would go through, let's say, our morning routine, and I would get her into the kitchen for breakfast. Always cooked a nice, healthy breakfast, and I'd put her in the living room where she watched the Animal Planet all day, or Jeopardy and the Wheel of Fortune and that kind of stuff
Yep.
at night. Seems to be mandatory for a certain age. And I would be off to Home Depot in between and getting on the material. So Home Depot, I'm coming in with 2x4s and buckets and all this stuff. And for about 5 days in a row, she's watching me in the living room pass her by, and she's going, "What is going on?" And I said, "I'm making your house more beautiful." She goes, "Well, who's paying for all that?" I said, "You are. So cheer up." And that went almost every day. I said, "I'm renovating your house. I'm making it more beautiful." "Who's paying?" "You are. Cheer up.
Oh, God.
You may have to go back to work." So it was a lot of fun. But during that, there was the last thing that I did was her bathroom upstairs, and I put in a big bathtub, and I thought, well, we take a lot of these things for granted. I don't know the last time she had a bath. She had sponge baths twice a day. I did sponge baths morning and evening. But last time, a real bubble bath. So I said, "Hey, you want to christen the new bathroom with a bubble bath?" And she said, "Absolutely." So I carried her upstairs, put her in the bubble bath, placed the bubbles nice, covering everything, and shot a picture. And she's just beaming from ear to ear. It's fantastic. Yeah. And then she passes out. And I'm like,
oh God,
tapping her cheek and going,
"Oh God."
I try to do a good thing and I kill my mom. But at least she smelled good. So I pull her out of the bathtub because, again, she had a wicked sense of humor. So I thought she was joking. And she wasn't. She was out. And so I carried her downstairs and put her to bed and called a nurse. And the nurse said she fainted because her blood pressure went too low in the hot water. You left her in too long. So that was her last bubble bath. But she woke up about 30 minutes later, had no recollection of passing out, but she loved the new bathroom. So it worked out good for me. That would have been a tough one to explain to my siblings. By the way,
I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah. God. So we had. I think that was the only near-death moment. There was another time when I finished the basement. I did all the work, but I had someone come in with the carpeting. So I had 2 carpet samples, and they're 3x3 inch squares. And I served her breakfast in bed this particular day, and then I put the 2 carpet samples on her breakfast tray. And went in to replenish her sippy cup with juice. And I came back and she has a carpet sample in her mouth and a scowl on her face. And I said, "What's going on?" She goes, "This is not a cookie." I said, "No, it's a carpet sample. Which one tastes better?" And she chose well. So we had some, we tried to make, again, you make light of it as best you can because it's a stress relief, I think, for both of us. And
but you think about if you didn't make that decision and go on this trek of life, these little moments are the things that pass us by every day really quickly. I know you're in the south of France now, and I know the pace is very different than it is here in North America, but I know you remember it, and I know you remember the hell-bent speed that everybody seems to be going on. We're tunnel visioned. We don't pop our heads up for moments like that. And I think back to growing up, you think about Reader's Digest, right? And Reader's Digest, in between all the articles, they always had these little teeny tiny little anecdotes, the life like that kind of anecdotes. And I find that those are going away unless we have some sort of a quest like this or a mandate like this. Again, these are some of those things that you never even would have thought of. Someone's got to take care of mom. I'll take care of mom. We'll make it happen. Right. But you don't imagine that those little life like that moments are going to happen. And here you are years later talking about those little moments, the carpet square versus the cookie. That's a beautiful little story there
Yeah.
wouldn't happen if you didn't take time and be present with your mom the way that you were.
Yeah. And I think that, my intention wasn't originally to write a book. I have a history of recording family events and stuff like that because I want to memorialize them. So that's kind of in
Gotcha.
my background. But also, I think from my screenwriting and stuff in Hollywood, if I see what I think is an interesting story, I think about, oh, what could I do to make this into a movie? And
Right.
but I started originally taking notes because, again, I was privy to all these wonderful moments, some very interesting conversations, and my mother had some pretty interesting visions early on. I didn't want my siblings to miss out
Yeah.
because I was experiencing these things every day. So I just started recording all those things. There were a couple other things. I think being a son, I think I took maybe a little more of a romantic approach with
Yeah.
mom, and I had a great relationship with her, with my dad as well. So I grew up with three sisters, so all had long hair, so I knew how to take care of hair and brush hair and braid, and I knew how to paint my mother's nails. Her nails were like the crown jewels. Had to be very careful with those, and with lipstick and things like that. And when I first got home, my mother had these old, tattered, drab day dresses. And I said, now we got to jazz this up. So if you want to cheer anybody up at any age, a new wardrobe will do that. And
Yeah.
so I bought her a new wardrobe of these very nice day dresses. Her legs were still in pretty good shape for her age. So I bought them on the shorter side. And she loved them, and it was fabulous. And so my mom had 6 kids, and she worked full time for the largest newspaper in New Jersey, called the Bergen Record, and she worked the night shift. And she only treated herself to a weekly visit to the beauty salon, where she had a shampoo and set and had her nails done. And when she would visit me in LA, I would take her to my friend's beauty parlor in Beverly Hills, where she got the movie star treatment, and I knew that she loved that. I don't know the last time she went to a beauty parlor or anything like that, but I created what I call Day of Beauty to try to recreate that at home. And so normally I gave her the sponge baths in the morning and evenings, but for Day of Beauty, while she sat on the commode, I soaked her feet in Epsom salts. I shampooed and rinsed and conditioned her hair. And then got her finished on the commode, got her on the bed and gave her the full sponge bath and a body massage, full massage, and body lotion and the baby powder and the new diaper. And then she chose her new wardrobe. And then there's another thing we take for granted. In between getting her up into the wheelchair, we came up with another one of our little special routines, a morning hug, because it's difficult to hug our elders. Usually they're lying in bed, and it may hurt for them to hug, if not make it almost impossible. But touch is really important. And so we would hug, and it would be fabulous. And neither one wanted to let go. And then I would get her in the wheelchair, and then I would blow dry her hair and put it in a ponytail or sometimes the braid. And then I would do her nails and then gave her a little touch of lipstick to match the nails. It was usually bright red. And I didn't think that much of it. I thought, oh, this is a nice gesture. So I'm wheeling her into the kitchen for breakfast, and we pass by our dining room, a big mirror in the dining room. Yep. And I pass by and I park her in front of that dining room mirror, and she is looking at her reflection and beaming. And I'm like, wow. So I lean in and I say, who is that pretty girl? And she just, it was beautiful. The effect on her and certainly on me was just profound. I didn't think, again, it was a nice gesture, but boy, the power of that. And I learned an important lesson is wanting to feel pretty does not end with at 90 or any age, and it's for men as well. 2 days before my dad passed, my dad was very strict Catholic, and his hair was always neatly combed. He had a comb in his wallet, and always clean shaven. And so my sister and I shaved him because we knew when he met Jesus, he wanted to be looking as good as he could. And he so appreciated that. So it goes with men and women. And again, these are things that we think aren't important, and they really are. And as I've shared this story with more people, they're saying that more assisted living and more nursing homes are starting to bring in people to do these things, whether beauticians or whatever. But the wardrobe and the Day of Beauty were magical.
Well,
And it was
it's a dig.
infectious because everybody who saw her saw,
Yep.
it was radiating. It was fabulous.
It's a dignity thing, I think, and dignity and self-esteem sometimes I think are connected to each other, and so if you can improve the self-esteem, you could also improve the dignity, or vice versa. It's probably both of those things.
Yeah, yeah.
I would think, knowing that somebody cares. And I mean, going through looking at the pictures that you had, with mom, and knowing that there was downtime that was there. So the pictures that you have are just, they're precious. I mean, and it's something that, like, I've learned a lot throughout listening to you here. The idea that you were taking notes so your siblings who weren't there could see that, but also taking the photos that you did, allowed a very similar kind of a thing. Now you also have some downtime. You're renovating the house. I get it. Were you writing at that time? You were writing the notes and whatnot. Were you writing screenplays, or were you writing? When did you start this book? Throughout the process of where your mom was.
Well, while I was, I guess, during my journey, a friend of mine was going through something similar with her dad. And so I shared some of my experience and also what I learned from hospice, the tips and tricks, and she got some benefit out of it. And
Yep.
that's when the idea of a book came in, because again, my first instinct is, how do I make it into a movie? And I said, no, I think this could help people and certainly put it out a lot faster than a movie. And and so that was it. But I couldn't, again, because the emotions and all that stuff, I couldn't write. So I just kept writing notes. And when I would be inspired or something hit, saying, oh, this story would be helpful. And
Yep.
because there's a lot of backstory in it that helped, I think, justify why I did what I did. And it was the way I
Hmm.
was brought up by my family, not only my parents, but my siblings and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
I couldn't write the book until I moved to France.
Yep.
And I never wrote a book, so I wanted to study memoir. And so I online, I studied a memoir course and did a few of those courses. And then my memoir teacher actually was my first editor. And she gave me
Oh,
some great
wow.
notes. And then I also said I wanted to be published. So I wanted to make it as good as
Yep.
possible. And
Yep.
I had two publishers that were interested. And so that was kind of nice, because at that point I was in my 60s. So I found my
Yep.
first publisher. And the book has done very well. It's won a bunch of awards.
Yeah.
It's selling well, and the personal notes I've received from people who have read it have been the best, and just lovely and very touching. One I'll share is this girl. I think she's from my hometown. I didn't know her, but I'm very aggressive with the marketing and social media. So a lot of people from my hometown have become followers on Facebook.
Sure.
And so she
Yeah.
contacted me. She says, my mom's 95. I bought your book, and I'm reading it to her, and we're both really enjoying it. And then the next year she contacted me. She goes, my mom's 96 now, and I wanted to let you know we're reading your book again because we had so much fun the first time, and here we go.
Wow.
And then she wrote me a couple of weeks after that, and she said, I just want you to know my mother passed away a couple of weeks
Hmm.
ago,
Hmm.
and your book has helped me so much, not only before, but during the process now, because of your sense of humor and stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
just thought that was just beautiful and really generous of her to share that with a stranger, basically. Or maybe we're not strangers now that she's read the book a couple of times, because my girlfriend here says, boy, you get to know a lot about him when we're done with this one, um, which is probably true. But yeah, that was beautiful. So the awards and the book sales is now it's going to be published in China and Taiwan and South Korea so
Wow.
far. And but those personal notes are the best. So
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Seeing the book up in Times Square, the picture, and I mean, I can only imagine, what mom and dad would think about the idea of one of their family stories. When you see that the up on the board in Times Square, it's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's especially Jersey Boy, who early on Manhattan is the place, right? You're going across, you're
yeah, I'm
performing at
back.
Lincoln
I'm
Center and
on
all that.
Broadway.
That's one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, the full circle parts of it. But then you take, that's great. And it's nice. Gratification is great. There's nothing wrong with gratification. It's a wonderful, wonderful emotion and feeling. But then, like, you look at all the layers down that are so much deeper than that, as to what you're talking about here. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I just, before we finish out, I know time gets really, really slippery when we do this. But when you do the next book, I want to have you back on,
Oh,
and I
super.
just appreciate, I like, Mark, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you sharing the things that you've shared. There's a lot of clues here for people who are going through this stuff, or maybe about to, that they can hear. And that's what heCast is all about. That's what He Changed It's all about, right? And the fact that it's not one of her daughters, the fact that you are one of the sons, I think a lot of time the caregiver does become is the woman many
Yeah.
times. And the fact that you did this, and not only did it, but wrote such a wonderful, wonderful retelling of the story that will make you laugh. And the squeamish parts aren't so squeamish. They're matter of fact that people, they're facts that people need. Matters of fact that people need is what I wanted to say. Um, I'm very grateful for that. How did you end up going to the south of France? How did that happen?
Well, I had an ex-girlfriend who always wanted to retire here, and I guess that put the bug in my ear. I thought, oh, if I retire, it's going to be on a Caribbean island or maybe Italy. My grandfather came from Italy, and I've been to his little village, and I thought that would be a place. But I came to France with her for the first time, and it was great. We spent a week in Provence with French friends from Paris, and then we spent
Mm-hmm.
a week at their place in Paris. And
Mm-hmm.
so my introduction was fabulous. And we also, my mother's mother had French in her. And so we have French on the other side of the family. So I think my French ancestors had something to do with it. And then a couple years later, she found we were no longer a couple, but still friends, because I was at home taking care of mom. And she said, "Oh, I found a place in this where I am now. It's a little village called Pézenas in the southwest part of France." And I said, "Well, if you want to make it a vacation home, maybe we'll both go in and invest in this thing." And so I came over here almost 11 years ago, actually, this month. Actually, I think
Wow.
today is when I landed here. And I spent 5 days in this village, fell in love with the people, and found this house and put an offer in. It was accepted. And then I moved here a couple years later. After 5 days, again, not knowing the
Wow.
language, I never expected to move to France, but I think the French ancestors had something to do with it, because none of this should have worked out. And the people here are lovely, and they
Yeah.
forgive me for I think my goal here is not to speak French, but to teach them English, because as soon as I start speaking French, they go right into English.
No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Let's just do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason I ask is because, you've always been the guy who has chased the things that you want to do. And then you go through this experience with mom, and then you write about it, you get it out there. I mean, the parts that we could talk about, the therapeutic results from writing out the story and getting out there the way that you did, I mean, endless. We could get into that. That those are obvious, but I was just curious if the ordeal, the experience said, you know what, this makes me want to do another kind of life change and do a reset and start, and if it had anything to do with that, or if you would have ended up in France anyway, somehow.
Excellent question. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Again, I like adventure, and maybe I needed a change. Losing at that point both of my folks. I'm still close with my siblings, but again, I moved out of the house shortly after I turned 18. I never really lived back there, except when I returned to
Yep.
take care of mom. And so went to school in Ohio, the Ohio State University, and
Yeah, I
then
see. Represent.
and then Hollywood, and then back to Jersey. So yeah, and then I guess I had to take a bigger leap. So I went across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
But the language is challenging for me. Boy, it shouldn't be that hard. We have so many words in common. I think they said there's 40,000 words in common, but boy,
Yep.
I don't know. Those words seem to escape me. But they're lovely. And the wine here, it's the largest wine growing region in the world, and the wine is cheaper than water. So if you're into wine, it's great. If you're not, it's a freaking nightmare. But luckily I'm into the wine, so it's nice.
Well, the book, I want to make sure we exclamation point the book. A Cup of Tea on the Commode. What's the best way for people to buy it? Obviously Amazon and all that's there, but whenever authors are on here, if they've got it on their own site or something like that, I always want to make sure I plug that. Not saying that Amazon's a bad thing, but I just feel that creators many times sometimes don't get what their just desserts sometimes from that. So if people want to buy A Cup of Tea on the Commode, where's the best place that you would like to send them?
Well, again, it would be Amazon or Barnes & Noble, any online site. Or if they go to the web, if they Google A Cup of Tea on the Commode, we're everywhere. I mean, the website also has a purchase button, which will give them lots of options because the publisher and our distributor has this all over the world, which is lovely. And so if people are, let's say, anti-Amazon, there's plenty of other places. And it comes in ebook, audiobook, a large print, and also the paperback. And
you read the audiobook. You finally got it. You got it out there and you read it.
Got it together. Yeah.
Well, that's great.
I think
it's the way it should be. It's the way it should be because it comes from the heart and it's from you, right? Like Steve Martin, he did the audiobook for Born Standing Up, and it's better when if it's autobiographical that the person reads it. So I'm glad that you were able to get it together so you could do that. That's a beautiful thing. I think it's one of the best ways to consume it because you're hearing it directly from your mouth. They're your words. It's coming from you, and that's such a personal thing. I can't thank you enough, Mark, for documenting this. I really think that what you've gone through, you've been able to turn it into a bright light. And I think that there are people who you've touched on how many people are being touched by the book. And, hopefully we can further that. And then there's guys that are out there that are hearing this going, okay, you know what? There are ways that I can get through this. I'm not alone. Yeah. And not only that, I can get a bit of a textbook as to what to do. And your story just serves as such a beautiful beacon for that. So, Mark, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come on heCast today and tell us your story. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity because it keeps Mom in the present and she keeps teaching, which is lovely. So I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you so much. This is why we do the show. Everybody's got a story, and all of those stories contain some sort of learning in it. Mark has done such a great job of really putting that to the forefront. If you haven't downloaded the He Changed It app, what the heck are you waiting for? Go to hechangeit.com and check out what's going on. And this is just, I just appreciate hosting the show so much. This has been another episode of heCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. My name is Mike Chisholm. Go change something.